Today we are at the Georgian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I'm pleased to introduce President of the Chamber, Mr. Giorgi PERTAIA. Would you like to briefly introduce your chamber, and especially what can it do for potential investors?
Thank you very much. Georgian Chamber of Commerce is the public law-based organization. We have around 1,000 members, and one of the biggest functions of the chamber is to facilitate and simplify procedures for the trade, for the international trade, for the export. We do the export promotion, and also we try to attract foreign direct investments, because there are a lot of cases when the companies who are importing some goods to Georgia, at some point they decide to make the small plant or the packaging or something like this, and in this case we are trying to simplify procedures for them to be the mediator between different governmental procedures, and we sometimes even do the due diligence for them. We make the pre-feasibility to show that the Georgia is quite attractive, and this is quite interesting job. So yes, we have quite close cooperation with the potential investors.
From your viewpoint, what are the main advantages of Georgia in the eyes of investors?
Well, I think that Georgia is one of the best places for investments, at least in our region. This is, first of all, it's about the very good business climate regarding low taxes, simplified procedures, low border crossing procedures, quite simplified registration of the property, and there are a lot of other segments as well. But I mean, if you go to other countries, usually the government officials, they like to sell their investment climate, and everything what I mentioned right now probably you will hear in different countries as well. But in Georgian case, everything what I said right now is proved by the international organizations like World Bank, Doing Business Index, the Heritage Foundation, the Forbes surveys, and etc. So when we say that there are the low taxes, it's not only the government that says we have the low taxes, it's proved by the international organizations. And I think that this different rankings of different agencies show the reality of Georgia. We are quite good in registration of property. Probably we are the #1 or second in the world after New Zealand, as I remember. We are quite good in border crossing. Everything is fast. You can really register a company in 20 minutes in Georgia and register your property maximum in 1 day. But we have some other problems, which also is showed by these agencies like World Economic Forum showed that we have quite problematic issues regarding professional education. Even though our labor, the salary is quite low, probably almost half than in Turkey, it's still quite problematic to find the professional people in Georgia, and the government is doing different new projects right now regarding professional education. We are going to spend a lot of money in this field, and we think that it's not going to happen in 1 day, of course, but we think that we will follow that. I'm talking about the problems right now, because when the people, my experience is that when the people see the Georgia being #7 in the world in doing business ranking, they are always asking the questions. I mean, especially people who don't know what is going on in Georgia, because, I mean, there are the countries like New Zealand, Singapore, USA, and such a big countries and such successful countries. And there is Georgia. So the people are asking the questions, what is going on in Georgia, and why Georgia is in the top 10 best countries for doing business. And this is the questions that we actually love to answer. And I travel a lot, and I try to answer that questions. And when we say about when we explain why we are #7 in the world, of course we are talking about the problems as well, because we don't want to show them that Georgia is the best place, and this is something that is really heaven of the business. It's quite, there are very good procedures in Georgia, very simplified, but there are some problems as well. But generally, the investors can get with the quite low risk, quite good profit in Georgia. And right now, when in Europe the investors are hunting for the quite good IRR, let's say, quite good profit, and it's quite difficult to get quite high number because risk is low as well. The Georgia is something like it's quite interesting for them because the risk is not that much like in China or other countries, but the rate of the profit is quite high. And Georgia is offering quite interesting fields. One of the interesting fields is regarding transportation, because Georgia by nature is the hub of the region. Most of the goods going to the Azerbaijan, Armenia and the Central Asian landlocked countries goes through Poti port and Batumi port. So all these big companies, they want to be presented in Central Asia, in Azerbaijan or in Armenia. And they understood that the best place to do the business or manage the business is Tbilisi, Georgia. And a lot of companies are coming. I've seen a lot of even consulting companies who are covering their operations from Tbilisi. And this is what this country wants. In the given situation where we don't have gas, we don't have oil, and we don't have such a strategic export product, we should be exporting our services, and we should be smarter than others. We should be educated than others. That's what we are going to do, and I think that Georgia, that's why the government is investing a lot in the education, and education is level one of the important. In the COVID situation where everything is changing, and when it's quite difficult to invest in, for example, in hotel, because we don't know when the tourists, the same level of the tourists will reach Georgia, and in the situation where it's quite difficult to invest in the energy sector, because you don't know, and no one knows right now what is going to be demand of the energy in this country, because it depends on the development of the economy and GDP growth. In that situation, one of the promising sector what Georgia can offer is the BPO. It's a business processing outsourcing. And I think that it's quite interesting because more and more companies from Europe are reaching Georgia for these services. And this is pure export. It's not the traditional export like wine or something, but we can develop it with the good management and the very good strategy. Because there are a lot of companies in Europe, they want to outsource their operations. Because in Europe it's quite expensive, it's much expensive than in Georgia, and they are not ready to outsource it to India, because their quality probably is going to be different, because you know that in Mumbai there was a quite big boom of the outsourcing for years, and now a lot of companies are leaving the Mumbai because of the quality, time difference, because of the pronunciation, and consumers cannot hear a lot of information. There are a lot of things. So they are looking for the place where first of all, the business climate is good, the taxes are low, people are educated, and they are quite close to the Europe. So it's not related to the big risk. And we've seen the big companies like Arvato, for example. The company came in from one day, they hired 500 people who are serving their clients, Arvato's clients, throughout the world. And this is great because first of all, they bring the knowledge, and we know that the FDI is the perfect when it brings the knowledge. And also it's export oriented, it's a service export. The same like Evolution Game, this is the company that hires 3,000 persons. So when the people talk about for example, politicians, they like, for example, the investments which are related to the very big number of the employment, like textile. Textile is perfect, like everyone likes textile. The investor came, he opened the textile factory, hired 4,000 persons. Somewhere in the region, you can imagine, like in Guria region, if you hire the 4,000 persons, that means that at least, I don't know, like 3 times more people get some income in the families and this and that. And it's perfect, but we should understand that the textile and this kind of business is moving. In the early 70s, it started from Netherlands textile, and after that it is moving to the east and chasing for the low salary. And like 20 years ago it was in Bulgaria, Romania, even in Baltic countries. Then the salaries went up, they moved to Turkey, and from Turkey, because we have the lower salary than Turkey, it is coming to Georgia. But we cannot plan the long-term strategy, we cannot make the long-term plan based on that investments. After 10 years, there will not be the textile in Georgia. And if someone tells me that after 10 years there will be the textile in Georgia, that means that our GDP growth was very, very low for the years. And we don't want to see actually the textiles after 10 years. It will move probably to the Central Asia or Africa or any other countries. So the question is, when we think about what kind of investments we should be looking for, the question is how we see Georgia after 10 years. So let's go through this, and we will find out what kind of investments we should be looking for right now. The first of all, textile and this kind of productions, no. After 10 years, we cannot see that. The big production like China or even Turkey is doing, no, because we don't have that much power, that much people, and also the country who has the ambition to become the very good tourist destination. You cannot make the heavy metal production or this kind of strategy. So no big production, it's not going to be. Agriculture, we see the agriculture as a potential field, but in specific niches. It cannot be massive production like Australia, like Argentina and other countries, like Turkey, for example. But the agriculture can get some specific niche, like a green product or even wine. I mean, we cannot be mass producers of the wine like Australia, but we definitely can go to the middle level niche somewhere in Europe and selling in the specific boutiques with this very special legend. So agriculture, yes, it has a potential, but we cannot say the agriculture cannot be the main motor of the Georgian economy. So when we talk about the energy, okay, we are going to build the hydropowers, we are going to build the sun and the different kind of energy producing plants, but in some point it's going to stop because there is the limited demand. Okay, we can be exporters, but I don't think that it's something that we can relay quite a long time. And at the end of the day, after 10 years, I see the country Georgia, where a lot of educated people are exporting their knowledge outside of the country. And to reach this goal, we should be working very hard right now to bring this kind of investor to Georgia and to invest a lot in education. Mm-hmm. And after 10 years, we can be the country. Right now, we are doing the very low level of BPO. It can be a call center. It can be, in some cases, it's promising that we see the BPOs where the financial services are outsourced. I know one of the American company who hired some Georgian architects, and they are doing the different designs for the Marriott hotels throughout the world, and this is the upper level. And the highest level is the research and development. Mm-hmm. So if after 10 years, if we'll have at least 5 companies like Mercedes or the big companies who does their research and development in Georgia, right now they do it in Czech Republic, in Poland, that would be the big success, I think. That means that we are not a call center country, which we are right now, close to that, but we are going to be quite high level. So these are it's my personal opinion that these are the main targets for us. And right now, I think that we are the number one in the region. I think that the main question what the investors usually have about the Georgia is that, okay, I like it right now. I like the low taxes. I like the procedures, everything. But you are the new country. Where is the guarantee that the same will be after 5 years? Because you have the elections. It's quite hot place to be actually, because around us there are a lot of external problems, there are internal problems, this and that. And where the guarantee? Because the business, when it comes, it doesn't come with a 1-year plan. It has a financial model which is at least for the 7-6 years. So he needs at least 7-6 years, at least the status quo, what we have right now, or the better situation, lower taxes or the much more simplified procedures, etc. And the main answer on that is that it's all about the Georgian people, because when you look at the Georgian politicians right now, the government says that we are pro-business. Opposition says that we are much more pro-business than the government. So there is a kind of exercise between each other who is the pro-business. And it's not because our Georgian people, I mean the politicians are so pro-business. It's all about the electorate. Electorate people finally understood that in the country where we don't have the gas and oil and this kind of resources, investor is most important person. We Georgians are quite open people and we welcome the foreign people. We like to study the new technologies and etc. And the guarantee that nothing is going to change to the bad is the people who lives in Georgia, because they will never allow to have the government power by the people who doesn't like investors. So the left wing, let's say left wing ideas are not very much welcomed in this country. Of course there are the ideas like raising of the pensions, and some of the politicians say about the higher taxes and this and that, but they are not, especially the second one is not very popular in Georgia, and this is the main guarantee, because there is no country in the world that someone could give you the guarantee that for 20 years it will be this kind of policy, because we know that in the democratic countries, like every 4 years the government changes, and you never know, there might be some socialist who wants to make the wealth tax or something like this, and of course it harms the business climate. I think that we will keep the low taxes for the next years. We will keep the simplified procedures. We will have, we will see the reforms of the judiciary system, which is very necessary in this country, and even government is admitting that. And we will see much more big activities from the government in attracting of FDI, because the COVID situation changed a lot, and now every government of developing country understand that it's going to be much more difficult to attract the FDI. The competition is going to be very high, and the governments should be much more creative in selling of the product and in creating of the product as well, because it's quite difficult now to convince people outside the country that to invest in Georgia.
That sounds really like a very good strategy, and makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm sure that's very important for the investors to hear. Speaking about investors who are not very well aware about Georgia, who just think it's a post-Soviet country, I'm sure you can tell them how things really stand, especially compared to other post-Soviet countries. I'm sure Georgia is a stable country. It is different from the other post-Soviet countries, but what would you say to this potential investor who is interested in this region but kind of is still hesitant and doesn't know much?
I've seen a lot of this kind of people actually who are hesitant, and this was my job to convince them to come to Georgia. And first of all, I would say that when we talk about the post-Soviet country, we are not anymore the post-Soviet country, and this is something that we were fighting for the years to change it in the different, because what the people, investors see actually is that geographically and historically, yes, we are the post-Soviet country, but how many years we should be the post-Soviet country? I mean, it's already 30 years past, and maybe next 30 years, or, I mean, we cannot call for example, UK post-Romanian empire, right? I mean, we don't know where is the limit. So when we talk about these stereotypes, Georgia is not anymore the post-Soviet country. We probably been in 2000 or 2005 maybe, but after that, no. Why? Because first of all, when we talk about the post-Soviet country, post-Soviet countries are associated with the high corruption, associated with a very high bureaucracy, quite non-democratic government. Elections usually are not transparent, and a lot of other gray colors, like even buildings, post-Soviet countries associated with the gray colors and gray buildings, Soviet buildings, etc. Georgia is absolutely different country. We are not post-Soviet country, and we want to fight this stereotype, and usually the people who come to Georgia and see Tbilisi and see how the things are done here regarding doing the business, everyone says that it's nothing to do with the Soviet image or Soviet stereotypes, and it's much more European style of doing business. We want to establish in the country procedures which are exactly the similar in their own countries where the investors are active, or much better, because we always say now as we signed with the European Union deep and comprehensive free trade agreement. We have a lot of obligations regarding harmonization of procedures with that of the European Union, but we always keep in mind that if we adopt all the regulations which are in European Union, then we will lose the beauty of investment climate in Georgia. No one is going to invest in Georgia if we will have the, for example, labor code exactly the same as in Spain. They will invest in Spain. So what we do, we try to have, on one hand, we should fulfill the requirements of the European Union, but on the other hand, we try to keep this beauty of investment climate of Georgia. And I think that we are doing it quite okay. There are some rooms of the development as well, but I think generally it's quite good. And I really think that the Georgia is absolutely fine place to get quite good profit for the quite low risk. There are a lot of government institutions. I mean, for the investors, they can use a lot of investors in my practice, they were asking if the government can be the partner in the business. Because we usually explain that you don't need this. It's not that country where you go and you need the kind of guarantees from the government, or you sleep in the night better because the government is your partner. You don't need this in this country, but still, I mean, some investors, because of mentality, because of different things, they want to have the government some kind of partner, because they believe that it will be easier for them to deal with the tax, with the other agencies if the government is their partner. So we have this tool as well, like partnership fund can go to the equities. There is going to be ongoing reform, but generally there are a lot of tools. There are the different private equity funds who are ready to invest with them. There are the agencies like Producing Georgia who can be main guide for the investors and help them with to find the right partners, because in Georgia our practice shows that to find the right partner, the local partner, is one of the biggest steps. And it's most important, because you can study the country, but you still need some local partner or local manager who will do the job. So at least for the first months or first years. And I think that every tool is in place. Georgia is quite a nice place to invest, and we believe that in other words, we have quite good product, but we are a little bit struggling in selling it. Because we try to be in different business forums. We are in the Davos Economic Forum every year. We try to be quite active, but I think that the Georgia should be quite loud and to sell their products. For example, now the government showed quite big success regarding fighting the prevention of the COVID. And I think that this is very good product to sell, because previously when the businesses were trying to make their financial models and they have some subjects, criteria, one of the criteria was the low taxes, judiciary system, political situation, external political situation, macroeconomic situation, etc. Now they are adding the two new criteria. This is the healthcare system, and the second is how the government can act in the crisis situation, how they can manage the crisis situation. Because who cares about the low taxes if the government cannot manage the COVID and they will just shut your business down, right? And it's disaster. So it's a new trend now that these people, the businessmen, they will put in their financial model this new criteria and they will evaluate it. So Georgia has a very good product in that to sell, and we should be very, very loud. But unfortunately, we cannot be everywhere. In most cases, we have a problem of awareness. Because we are still a new country. I mean, especially when you go to the transatlantic, when you speak to the transatlantic investors, there's a quite low level of awareness about the Georgian. Usually they just ask why we should invest. It needs work. The business forums are good. I've never seen any contract signed after business forum, investment forum, but it's good for awareness. And the Georgia should try to be everywhere. We should be on advertisements. We should spend money on advertisement, but the best advertisement still is the fact that the investor who already is in Georgia, he feels quite good. This is the best advertisement because word of mouth goes quite fast. And when we were doing the business forums and when we were trying to convince the investors, I was trying to speak less as a government official, and I had the businessmen, foreign investors. Well, like for example, when we went to Swiss, I had the Swiss guy who invested in Georgia, and he was speaking that I invested in Georgia, I have a profit, it's quite easy to do, and this is how it works. Because if you go to worst country in the world with the worst climate, probably their government official will come out and say that we have quite good investment climate, please come to Georgia. But when the real businessman who already tried this country comes to his colleagues and talks about the quite good business environment, I think this kind of action has absolutely different results.
Right, right. Thank you very much. We are almost finished. Maybe one more question, the last one. You have been working in attracting investments to Georgia for many years, so you have a lot of experience. From your experience, what's your ideal investor?
I always say
now?
that it's good that you mentioned the ideal investor. Some people use the good investor and bad investor, like and then they have their own criteria. But I always say that there cannot be bad investor. Investor is always good. There are good and very, very good investor. That's how I divide it. And I think that the ideal, let's call it ideal investor and good investor. Ideal investor is the investor who brings the knowledge in this country, because as I said that our power and our main resource for the export should be education and the knowledge for next decades. And this is our niche, we should be there. So ideal investor is the investor who brings the knowledge, the new technologies. It can be know-hows, it can be some companies who does the R&D in Georgia, and this is actually one of the newest technology that the Georgians can know. And the second is export oriented, because export is very important for this country. And I mean, usually this kind of businesses are export oriented because our market is very small. So these are the best one. I mean, when we talk about the Google, Tesla, Facebook, yes, it's a great place. It would be great to have them. And it's not, I mean, when you have this kind of company like Tesla, we call it anchor investor, right? Even if they do something that is not hiring a lot of people, it's not bringing to the Georgian budget a lot of money, the name and the news that Tesla or Facebook goes to Georgia is the best advertisement what we can have. I mean, we can spend the millions and tens of millions in advertisement invest in incredible Georgia, and we've seen it on the CNN, BBC, and other TVs. This advertisement. But the result cannot be even close to the news where it says that for example, Tesla goes to Georgia. That means that the business climate is for sure quite good there. That means that the democracy level is quite sure, and that means that people are Tesla and his management believes the future of this country. Because sometimes our investors who are in Georgia, they are much more, they trust the country much more than the locals sometimes. Because, I mean, they came from outside, they came here, they invest in the project which the length is 10 years, and they are calculating some things, what is going to happen in 10 years. They are even, they are calculating the incomes on 9th year, 10th year. Georgians doesn't do that. They do it only 2 years, 3 years, and they don't care about the fourth one because they always say, I don't know what's going to be after 4 years. So the ideal investor is who brings this kind of culture to Georgia.
And thank you very much for this excellent interview.
Thank you very much.